한국의 전통 결혼식. 한국의 전통 혼례는 신부의 집에서 치르는 것이 관례입니다. 신부의 집에서는 혼례일을 정하고 신랑 집에서는 혼례 전날에 옷감과 편지가 든 함을 신부 집으로 보냈습니다. 전통 결혼식에는 주례가 없고 결혼 절차를 진행하는 사회자만 있다. 신랑과 신부는 혼례상을 마주보고 서로 절을 하고 술을 나눠 마시며 끝까지 함께할 것을 약속한다. 혼례상 위에는 대추와 밤, 소나무, 대나무, 기러기, 암탉과 수탉 등이 있다. 이러한 것들은 모두 특별한 의미를 가지고 있다. 예를 들면, 기러기는 사이 좋은 부부관계를 나타내고 대추와 밤은 많은 자녀를 상징한다. 신부는 아름다운 예복을 입고 족두리를 머리에 쓴다. 붉은색이 나쁜 것을 막아준다고 믿기 때문에 두볼에는 연지, 이마에는 곤지를 찍는다. 혼례를 치르고 나면 부부는 집안 어른들께 패백을 드렸습니다. 가족들은 신부에게 대추와 밤을 던져주며 자식을 많이 낳고 복되게 살라고 기원해 주었습니다.
Welcome to the Korean traditional wedding ceremony. Have you ever seen an actual Korean traditional wedding ceremony? Do you know what all the items on the tables mean? What the groom is holding? And what kinds of different steps the wedding ceremony involves? Well, in this video, you will learn about the various elements and each steps that a Korean traditional wedding should have. You will learn what the string means, what the groom is wearing, and the colors that are typical in a wedding ceremony, and even for the bride, what kinds of attire, headdress, and makeup that she had on. Through this video, we hope that you enjoy all the colors, the symbols, and the meanings behind the practices and the items, and learn the 6 rites in a traditional Korean wedding ceremony. Enjoy! This first scene is the 전환례, the first rite of the 6 rites in the Korean traditional wedding ceremony. In this scene, the groom is seen following the 길어가범, which means the uncle with the goose, to the bride's house. The 길어가범 hands the groom the 모간, which is goose made of wood. It represents the principle of yin and yang, symbolizing getting married and living together for 100 years. By the way, the groom was holding a 포선, a type of covering on sticks. This was to cover his face so he can cover his smiles and maintain his decorum on this happy day. The 길어가범 gives the wooden goose to the groom. Then the groom set it down on the table in front of him. Then he bowed to the bride's mother, and now is bowing to his bride. See how many times he bows to the bride. Well, he is not quite done yet, but he will bow for a total of 4 times. Can you guess what the 4 times represents? The first bow is bowing to the ancestors. The second bow is bowing to the parents. The third bow is bowing to the gods. And the last bow is bowing to the bride. The 4 bows always ends with a 1 half bow. The bride's mother then tosses the goose towards the skirt of the bride, who is sitting in the room. In this scene, she is rather putting it down gently. But if the goose lands on its right side up, it means the bride will have a son as the firstborn. If the goose lands on its side or lays down, it means daughter for the firstborn. Maybe the mother was hoping for a son for the firstborn. Now we are on to the next scene. Before this scene, there had been a few steps that had taken place. Napche is the act of the groom side of the family sending the told fortune and to propose to the bride. In Yeongil, the bride sends to the groom the chosen wedding date. Then, the groom side of the family does the naphe, in which they send over a gift box and the marriage letter. Let's take a look at what is on the wedding ceremony table. The chestnut means longevity and prosperity. The rice represents wealth. The red bean symbolizes protection against evil. The jujube represents a new day. The silk, since it is shiny and does not tear easily, represents lasting happiness. The pine tree represents being forever green and healthy, and the bamboo represents propriety as the bamboo grows upright and strong. Let's look at the hanbok, the Korean traditional dress that they are wearing, along with the poson that he is holding up to cover his face. He is wearing samo gwande. Samo means the hat that he's wearing. Gwande is the belt. The bride wears a tahong skirt, a chogori, the top, and wonsam or hwarot, the hwarot which was originally a royal ceremonial robe, but it was also worn at weddings of ordinary people. On her head she has jokduri, the hair decoration, and she also wore hansam, the long sleeves that were padded to hide her hands. On the bride's cheeks is the yeonji gonji. This is shiny red paper that is put on the cheeks of the bride so that the evil spirits dare not come close to the beautiful new bride on this auspicious day. And now we're at the main venue of the wedding ceremony. The bride and groom enter with an assistant by their side. These assistants are called sumo. At the center of the stage, there is the main ceremonial rites table with the officiant standing in front of it, and off to the side is the announcer directing each step. The officiant has just announced that the groom stands on the eastern side of the table and the bride stands on the opposite side. Each sumo moves over to the opposite side and lays out the mats where the bride and the groom will be situated for the rest of the ceremony. The officiant has just announced the washing hands ceremony. In this part, they wash their hands as a sign of committing to the ceremony with a clean body and mind. The groom's assistant holds the bride's towel and has the groom use it, while the bride's assistant holds up the groom's towel and has her use it. When this part of the ceremony is done, each of the assistants will go back to the bride and the groom, just like how they started. Korea's traditional wedding ceremony differs depending on the era, family, and region, but it is usually rooted in the case of juju, or the traditional funeral ceremony. In the Joseon dynasty, when Confucianism had a strong influence, the ceremonial occasion was more than just a simple ceremony, and it is deeply rooted in the lifestyle, and it's still considered very important today. The bride and groom will now be stepping onto the ceremonial mats. The officiant has just announced the groom to bow to the bride. As you might have noticed, it is not so easy standing up, bowing multiple times while wearing the traditional hanbok for the wedding.
부제제
The officiant has announced the bride to now bow to the groom. The bride bows 4 times in this case. Once again, the symbolism is bowing to the ancestor, bowing to the parents, bowing to the god, and bowing to the spouse. Just like for the groom, it is not such an easy task for the bride to bow for so many times in the hanbok.
소답일제
To the bride's bow, the groom bows back in return. Once the groom is finished bowing, the part of the bride and groom greeting each other has ended. Now we're ready for 서천지례 part. In this part, the bride and groom takes the marriage oath, and the presiding officer will read the 고천문. 고천문 means a statement to the gods.
삼가하려옵니다. 2021년 6월 21일 미주 캘리포니아에서 가족과 지인을 모시고 현상의 선남 선녀가
In the
100년
고천문, the
가야지
officiant has stated the names of the bride and the groom and asked the god to allow the two to be married. He calls it a 백년 가약, which means a marriage that will last 100 years, and that the marriage is being able to be held with the help of the families and the acquaintances. The officiant prays that the two people will be able to connect, cherish, and love each other in the name of husband and wife, be together in this world with mercy and wisdom, and become an example of a healthy family.
자비와 지혜로서 이 세상 함께하며 건강한 가정의 예가 되도록 기원합니다. 서투부각귀좌
The groom does a half bow to the bride and sits down, and the bride returns the bow and also sits down. The assistant of the bride and groom pour the drinks and give the cup to each of them. The bride and groom hold up the cups high to make an oath, and after taking a sip, they give the cup back to the assistant. Then the cup is placed on the table, and each of them receive a jujube in their mouths. This jujube is the snack along with the drink that they just had, and it represents offsprings. At this time, the bride slightly shakes her head, refusing to take the jujube. This represents the shyness of the bride and her modesty. In this next part, called 서배우례, is a ceremony in which the bride and groom make an oath to each other and accept the vow. The groom's assistant winds the red thread over her left hand once, and for the bride's assistant winds the blue thread twice on her right hand. The assistants go back to the bride and groom and pour the drink. They hand over the cup to the bride and groom. The bride and groom hold up the cup at chest height, making an oath to their spouse, drink half of the drink, and give the cup back to their assistants. Each assistant takes the cup, gets up, goes to the other side, takes a seat, and gives the cup to the groom and the bride. The groom and bride then take the cup, hold it up to chest height to accept the vow of the spouse, drink rest of the drink, and take the cup and put it back down. Once again, this is representing that each of them are accepting the wedding vows of each other. The assistants now bring over the thread that was on their hands onto the middle of the ceremonial table. They will lay the threads together on the pine tree and the bamboo leaves so they can connect the two. The red and the blue represent the bride and the groom. Next, we will start the 근배례. 근배례 is a ceremony to declare that a gourd has been split into two and then come together into one again. In preparation for this, the assistants lower the drink cups off from the plates. This is in preparation of the gourd to be filled with the drink instead. Then, the assistants take the gourd that is on the main ceremonial table and brings them down closer to the bride and groom. The assistant pours the drink into the gourd. If you thought they were now ready to drink from the gourd, nope, that is not correct. First, the gourds are exchanged, one going over the table and the one going under the table, and as you can see closely, the two gourds are connected with a string.
가까운 부재무효.
The officiant has just announced that the bride and groom drink from the gourd. They need to be careful not to spill. After they have taken their sips, the assistants bring the gourd back on to the main ceremonial table. At this time, the two gourds must be placed back together as if they are one to represent the unity of the bride and groom. The drink cup is placed back on the saucer. Now we are nearing the end of the wedding ceremony. The bride and the groom will stand up with the help of the assistants, and they bow to one another. The groom bows to the bride, and the bride slowly lowers the towel and bows back to the groom.
예필철상.
With the officiant announcing 예필철상, announcing the end of the ceremony, the wedding ceremony has indeed come to an end. I hope you enjoyed and learned a lot about Korean traditional wedding ceremony and the hanbok, the Korean traditional attire.